Hello everyone, this video was recorded during a Twitch session that I didn't notice I wasn't casting any audio. So I'm basically turning this concept that I did a few days prior into a pixel art isometric drawing. The problem here is this was drawn in 3-point perspective, so I have to match that perspective. And as you can see at the top, it doesn't really match the 30-degree line. So I'm using distort here, feature transform and distort, to try and get the drawing to still read correctly but obey the perspective a little bit better. This is me deciding the size of the barrels, which will obviously force the whole drawing to be smaller. And in this case, I start by doing a isometric grid piece on the ground, so a grid tile, and using that as my base, I define the volume of the house as well as the angle. As you can see, the roof there is still not matching at all, so I'm going to have to start from the bottom and make my way up and try and fix things as I go along. Using a different color, I do the structure for the house, so for the volume of the house, and at this point I really work just with boxes. I mean, it's a lot easier than to try and just re-scribble this again. As this was designed from this angle only, I really don't know what's on the other side of the house, so I kind of have to, make it up as I go. Duplicating lines is kind of the fastest way to get perfect angled lines, unless you want to eyeball everything each time. Now, one of the methods that I use is just making a new layer and going on and doing the wood parts. In this case, I'm doing not only the wood but also the stone part, or the wall part, which in this design is a sort of daub kind of wall. And as you can see how sloppy the cloth part is, it's really just so that I know that I don't have to draw what's underneath of that. Okay, so I don't have to really extend the drawing. And in this case, I'm doing the wood, and underneath, as you can see, very sloppily, I paint the color for the wall. And because the work on the wood is fairly okay, it comes out clean. Now, because the roof is a little extruded out, there's always going to be a cast shadow, as you can see there, on the surface of the wall. I did forget to outline this part of the roof here, and as you can see, it also goes out of perspective a little bit. And I'm using here a fairly clean line work because I'm going to use that later on as an outline, a shaded outline, to sort of encompass the whole drawing. And by doing that, I get to keep the silhouette, and it's easier for me just locking the transparency of this layer and just going in and painting whatever color I want on that area. In this case, I'm painting a darker color for the roof because I want that to sort of look like it's carved into the roof, or at least a little darker. And as you can see, the edge of the roof does not match the angle at the top, so I have to start by fixing that, and then eventually I'll have to fix the top part as well. Now, if I remove the drawing underneath, then it'll look okay, but right now it looks like it's going off at a wrong angle. But as soon as I start to get rid of the underlying drawing, you will see that it starts to make sense. Now, you'll see me jump around from the drawing. This was done over a period of an hour, more or less. And you can see me jump around in the image, from one side to the other. And that's pretty much because if you start adding too much detail, the drawing, in one part of the drawing, then the rest of the drawing sort of becomes unbalanced, and you have this urge to fix it. What I'll do here is I'll use the color from the shingle underneath to shade the edge of the one at the top, because it gives it that slightly raised look. And here as well, I'm drawing the shingles, but I don't use the same technique here because they're at a different angle. Kind of wouldn't make sense. Also, sometimes I'll be drawing little schematics on the next to the drawing, because I think I was explaining something to the people watching the stream, but obviously they didn't hear it, so they probably just went, what is he doing? Like here, for example, I try to explain how to lock a shape in position without drawing the outline, and it's basically by using everything around it to lock it in. And that's the little example that I used, but they didn't hear it. At the end of the stream, I did ask people if they had any questions, and no one did, and the reason was they weren't listening to me. So in the case of the cloth, I really try and make it a little bit more tidy, but because it's cloth, it's supposed to be waving, it's supposed to be a little bit erratic, otherwise it will look just too neat and proper, which wouldn't make too much sense. Now on the right side of the house here, everything's a little too dark. So I eventually figure out that I should make it a little brighter and use that dark color as the wood dark inlays, or the the carvings or the spaces in between the planks. And because I'm missing a dark tone there in between the roof and the wood, and then I'll go on to the left where there's that really dark brown and use that as a line, a dark line. And that really adds to the drawing, because it keeps, even within the shadow, it adds the detail and the depth of the different parts of the wood. In this case, I sort of changed the color of the wood because I think it's a little too off. I think I even changed the color of the planks a little bit later. I'm not sure though. In this case, the grass, really quick, just add that green rectangle at the bottom, or a sort of diamond shape. And now I'm creating the barrels. I forgot to take away the anti-alias on the selection. I wasn't really getting it. Now the barrels, what I did was I tried to add vertical lines to separate the different planks of wood that make up the barrel. And then I added the gray, sort of gray lines around it as a way to simulate for the metal arches, or the metal circles that hold the thing together. I did shade them the same way so that they look to have the same volume, and I forget to shade the top of the last barrel because it's supposed to be in shadow, and it just doesn't look all that well. Also forgot to add the hanging sign with the money bag, which is, overall symbol for general store. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of detail here with the grass by cutting away at the edge of the ground, and also by adding a few more blades of grass around the top edge of that ground. The flowers are very quick, just 4x3 ellipses, and then filling in 2 pixels in with yellow, and then adding a little bit of a shadow. The rocks here, I add a very dark shadow, which makes them look really tall. So I bring the shadow down a little bit so that it doesn't look as dark, so that the rocks don't look as thick, so they look a little thinner. Should be cutting the edge of the grass anytime soon. In this case, I'm just actually doing a little bit of dark near the barrels, almost like an ambient occlusion thing, and fixing up details. Now here, if you were to put this on a grass grid, the grass texture would be able to poke out through those cuts and still look cool. So that was it.